Gender-based violence in the fishing communities of the country is said to be on the rise. This is attributed to the decline in the fish stock, socio-cultural norms, lack of accountability among partners, poverty, and polygamous relationships in those communities. This is confirmed by findings of a research conducted on gender-based violence in some fishing communities of the central and western regions. The effect of GBV has not only been the economic consequences alone, but injuries, adolescent pregnancies, child labor, child marriage, increase in school dropout, burden of care on the elderly, and stigma from communities. Gender-based violence in the fishing communities is very real, and women and children are very often the victims. The roles of women and men in Ghana's fishing industry are defined by traditional gender roles. While men undertake the fishing expedition, women constitute the other large group responsible for fish processing and marketing. They further engage in fishery-related activities close to the household. They are again mostly the financiers of the fishing expedition by fishermen. Unfortunately, their roles are underrepresented in the sector due to harmful cultural norms, practices, and conventions. This is also confirmed by the 2021 International Monetary Fund report on the heavy economic toll of gender-based violence, evidence from the sub-Saharan Africa. According to the report, if violence perpetrated against women in fishing communities are reduced even by 1%, society stands to increase productivity and economic benefit by 8%. Again, research findings by the Wives Project, validated by stakeholders, also noted that 54% of community members within the beneficial communities in western and central regions have experienced or witnessed a gender-based act before. 90% of the victims in these instances are women. Adiza Ama Owusu is the project manager for Women in Fisheries Against Violence, that's the Wives Project, being funded by the European Union and implemented by Hien Impuano and Sewefia. She shed more light on the research.
Also, the men are also entering into polygamous relationships, and they hope that they'll get additional support from partner and non-intimate partners so that they can get all these supports to input into the fishery sector. But because they don't get enough fish and the little resources that they get, they will have to share it among the partners, which is already not enough, and it's causing a lot of disagreements and violence and all the abuse and discrimination we find within the sector.
The director for SEGRAD at the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Mrs. Georgina Oduro, further highlighted how serious the issues are within the fishing communities and what actions need to be taken to protect women especially and children who are often the victims.
We do know from the literature and from practice that men are the fishers, because in Ghana women don't go fishing on the ocean, on the sea. But women are processors. Through our advocacy programs with NAFTA, the various bodies and co, we do educate the women so they know how to detect when the fish is not right, into inverted commas. And some of the things they do is to boycott. So when they boycott or they advocate against such illegal fishes, then one of the dimensions of violence that they experience based on them boycotting is to be refused sale of the fish catch. You get it? You may want to argue that this is not violence, but it is a form of economic violence, economic gender-based violence, in the sense that you are depriving the woman of the fish which will give her sales, which will impact on her livelihood, which will in a way affect her family. Because then if I'm not working, if I'm not earning, then it means I'm deprived. Sometimes they'll go fishing, and because they've been off land, and for that matter off sex, and because the women can't accompany them on the high seas or on the sea fishing, when they come back, then they sell, they chase women, they become promiscuous, and then when the wife, who into inverted commas, wife or wives who are legal, question it, you face beating.
Some women from the fishing communities who were spoken to confirmed the ordeal they are often subjected to by their men.
If you want, this guy wants to do two things. I could perpetrate that do cocoa. I quite know that and I'm the band at the bar. None of the cacao, who lay dinner for so large, and it's them not like a cassa or the one thing. It's the many home, but there be problems. No, but
I am Benin better only a Jimana, I will be Siano, a baby in the man, loan, and I will be no more than and I made a day. Therefore, I was your baby on an amano, a one or a legima. I will be sent to be said was Sarah the man, one cassa. It's why the man, on my word, they said a Benin was 15. On ye there, our it is one more day there. That's not a being a besia, or by your hope, no what's not why a demand. Not for dear.
What's I know? Send a penana, Jane, Neso couldn't be necessary, and no, maybe. That's why Madame Mono saying, and I see Bine, Kaibuno, or Peron, Cascasso, Puana. Sissana Benin or Pede, I could be more new than you be the mamma from an accident.
I am posting the wages, Cabede, 500 Ghana, or more. Not able to petrol 5 gallons, not alcohol. The one of them which you want your baby so Baba Sanington. No so better than Toba farm, I'm welcome about phone. Make a cup and air Brissimodo. In Sabanation, no, your baby won't farm. One they say, I want you to have Ponayan to Quantua. Some I catch a Bossiana scheme out to petrol Moaya Kawi. I, you know what, Pedoya, Melan yo. Me, ya, Malama the cow, Marco to petrol bear 30 million. Na di oleba adi oleba wa misi na ma akọ bobo sa to petrol wo kopum we yana ma be se dem stress ebe ya di ye abranda so dem ko chiasa ye me se kra
mo yin den eya ma wa akopum wa aba ikunu na afam di wo ma odeba ma ne yelo ntokwa na asam na american oda ma yele na onye me de nukun na zan kaka akra na oda ma ye na ye na oda ogbo anu te ma aso na oh, there, you're not going to a man. None should now from them are not way or the afternoon. Some more than to call the name. Maybe by you, Mrs.
The Queen of Anumabo, Nana Mbroba Dabo, bemoaned the frequent happenings of such incidents in the fishing communities. She attributed it to some socio-cultural norms, lack of transparency and accountability by partners, especially the men, and the polygamous lifestyle of the fishermen along the coast.
Polygamy, because they like what you call marriages. And then also sometimes you see when they go and then they bring the fish, they give everything to the women. So also it's accountability. Some of them also are not, they don't tell the truth. Okay, and you'll be surprised. Even the women, when the men even give the fish
fish or the money to them, because the men are expecting to get the returns from the women, because when they come, they give all their fish to them to go and sell. So when they are going, when it's time for them to, like, say, buy the premix and all these things, and the money is not coming, that is when you see the anger comes set in. So sometimes also it's the way the women also approach their husbands. That is what.
Interestingly, many fishermen spoke to along the fishing communities confirmed the research findings. They, however, justified their behavior and attributed their actions to the lack of respect, transparency, and profligate behaviors of their women, especially when they get money.
So I did there was that I said, Emil be in my way, Igman Marben. I said, I want to bend the master in your day. But until you before not the bed. Or the other woman put my things, I can't.
When young quit up upon for members, I look up at the whole problem in our lives in there. What about the name of no quality? Young and oil again a game. Even so, Kulima, the other second is couple of so baby. It's a mess of no, but no one beginning to Yabutala. No, I go for the same problem what I know that. The mamma, the Minya, Miss Akuna may him to me. If a dog can't hear me, open to the mo. Can I don't know Yadoko? You are you put out 20. Mr. Sanko, workers in your 20. Can I want you must out 20. Na Yako Pune and Namaka Daba, Namaso, Alunso. Maybe said the Naman Meta, one first can I mania. The judges can be that to put to an Dakoto that I maintain as about some of the trouble, Papa. Okay. In Timabe, Mbano, David Namaba, Namana Wadim, I become out of Mupu. Where did you know you were on, you were on, you were on? No, one near Yako Papa, but I know what she had. Edwin Jay no Yedman, can you buy a woman, Edwin alcohol, or feed the home? Let's have a minute, Edwin, Okopuma, Sunday, the Musango women, Mupama, when I only made the Emerald scan with us, what a man, what do we add to Tonka Marcasi? No, what do we add the Kayakasi? Mr. Cram, we there. The man being better, a country. That's so when time and I'm back of Ubi, but all of when we be. You're putting in and number like 10 years of opportunity to discover a time. The choir and the last one of payment. Also, bear the baby enough. I say about to know about my 6 years. Okay, the man, if he's still has some from Lord Cashnide and farmer. Woman, I'm going to go over the scan watch. Now, I'm from me in a terrible domino. I've been man, let me be maneuver. All of me before the mother ball. Honest one of the 9 year and much.
The Central Regional Director of the Department of Gender, Mrs. Richlove Amanu, gave her perspective about the issue in the region.
And yes, it is true that sexual and gender-based violence exists in the fisheries industry. It is an issue that cuts across, and the Central Region is experiencing it so much because the departments normally have engagement with these women in fisheries, and sometimes the issues they bring up are disheartening. It's just too bad to listen to. With the issue of women, we know what culture normally do to women, and we know gender is culture driven. And so when it comes to fisheries, though they may sponsor the men sometimes, Some are well-to-do, the women are financially sound, but all the same, they are being cheated. There are so many women who support their husbands. After fishing, they do the smoking, the processing, the selling, a lot of things. It is women who are normally in charge of that. But after that, they are being cheated. The women will give them the money to do whatever and go to the sea. After they fish, even they sell it higher to them. The women who sponsors them, they sell it higher to them. The other thing that they go through is to even sell the fish to the women becomes a problem. Sometimes they do barter trade, and that is you give their children their girl child. That is where the girl child fall prey to. Now, sometimes to always get fish to buy, and this is not coming from me, you need to link your girl child to this fisherman, and then when they come back, because they have something doing with your girl child, they are in a relationship with your girl child, then they will give the fish to you to buy. This is another problem the women are facing.
Once every year, the international community highlights violence against women and girls through the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign. But for too many women, violence is a fact of life for all year round.